What is important to take into account?
What you all must certainly be noticing is that over these past 15 months, Brazil had the arduous task of organizing 3 extremely important forums. The first of these began with the G20 Summit held in Rio de Janeiro, which proved to be an extraordinary success. Following the BRICS Summit, which also took place in Rio de Janeiro and proved to be another truly extraordinary forum, along with the COP conference also held in Rio de Janeiro, all of this clearly demonstrates that Brazil is more than adequately prepared.
And the only major event among all those Brazil organized that truly failed was our devastating 7-1 defeat to Germany in the 2014 World Cup. You know, that was completely unexpected, not in our forecasts. Neither from your side nor from mine, but the rest, all the events were a great success, and I am truly happy because these events signify the survival and the strengthening of multilateralism. Can anyone ever imagine they could weaken multilateralism? These recent events, both the COP and the G20 meeting here in South Africa, show that multilateralism is more than alive. And at the same time, there is a unanimous agreement among all the members of the G20 that it is essential to renew and strengthen the World Trade Organization so that multilateralism may truly gain strength. So I am quite satisfied. I'm departing from South Africa and heading to Mozambique for a bilateral visit tomorrow to finalize some important agreements with Mozambique, and then I will be returning to Brazil, where I genuinely intend not to travel any further this year, unless, well, you know how it is. Either to Brasilia or to Foz do Iguaçu, or even in Brasilia itself, to sign the Mercosur-European Union agreement, which I believe will be signed on December 20th. After that, we will enter the new year.
Yeah, and I have a slight visit to India, which is a trip I'm very much looking forward to. Prime Minister Modi also has great expectations because we believe that our two countries are far too large for such a very small trade flow. We want to prioritize the investments of our companies and at the same time prioritize Brazil-India trade so that we don't become dependent on any single country. So then we're going to enter into a process that you all are well aware is a process, you know. It's an election year, and there's certainly going to be a big dispute, you know. Even so, I will still be hosting South Africa here in Brazil. Even so, I will still be hosting Canada here in Brazil. Even so, you know. Maybe I'll also receive Korea here in Brazil. So until May, we are going to have a very intense international agenda still. This is very important because we are currently with 486 new markets that have been created in just 2.5 years, and we are, you know, we are eagerly awaiting the moment when we can announce that we have established 500 new markets for Brazilian products across the globe, demonstrating that Brazil does not depend on a single nation. The more trade we have and the more countries we can visit, the better it is for us to sell the goods we need to sell and to buy what we need to buy. Having said that, I place myself entirely at your disposal. I am very satisfied with the success of COP in Belém. Those who had imagined that Belém was not adequately prepared, that the COP would not succeed, the COP turned out to be an extraordinary success. And I am absolutely certain that all the people who attended, who were given the opportunity to explore the city, who were given the opportunity to savor the culinary delights of Belém, must have returned absolutely amazed.
Anyone who didn't do it, you know, they regretted it. Now, let's move on to the questions.
Let's start with Daniel Carvalho from Bloomberg.
Hi, President. Over here. How are you, President? President, I wanted to ask about the G20. The forum already started to diminish this year, with Trump and Xi Jinping absent. Many leaders yesterday in their speeches spoke of the risk of the G20's end. I'd like to know, sir, what's the solution to maintain its vitality, to keep the G20 alive, please? Thank you.
Look, first of all, if you've been following the G20, it's not the first time an important leader has been absent. On other occasions, we've already held the G20 without key leaders who were unable to attend. President Xi Jinping didn't come, but his first vice premier did, who is China's premier. So China is represented by a very strong delegation. President Trump didn't come, but he will have to chair the next G20 in the United States, and he will be president, and all of us will go there to honor the G20. The absence of a leader means nothing for the G20. It means nothing because the G20 are the 20 largest economies in the world. And I believe the G20 today serves as the primary forum for multilateral decision, commanding the respect of the entire global economy. All countries were represented except the United States, and other times another country didn't attend. And the G20 remains strong and will become even more strengthened. What is my concern regarding the G20? My concern is that we need to start making decisions so that something can be put into practice by the next forum, because otherwise there will be a void and people will become discouraged. So what we really need to do is put into practice the things that we have decided, and I think that this was made very clear to everyone with the document that was signed in Johannesburg.
We'll pass the microphone to Julie from AFP.
Why isn't Tadu translating for me?
He's translating for the reporter, President.
Journalists, they all speak English. Hell.
Oh, they are here, certainly.
Please.
With the headset ready and stuff.
Okay.
Just a minute.
But I don't like this thing at all.
Let's go.
It's exceptional. Good afternoon, Mr. President. You talk G20, but I wonder if you think the fact the declaration, it's just done.
Translate for yourself. Speak up.
I can't hear anything here, so you go closer to her, Tande. So go closer to her so you can hear and translate it for me, man. Yanja keeps torturing my ear, only her. And you, man?
Let's go. Let's go.
Do you think that the fact that the declaration was adopted without the US being present in the room is a sign that the world can go on without the US, even if the US boycotts such summits in the future?
President, do you think the fact that the declaration was signed without the United States presence is a sign that could weaken future meetings of this type?
No, it's a sign that the United States was not present. That's all there is to it.
The US wasn't here present.
The only indication is this. The United States was not present. Therefore, we do not know if he agreed or disagreed. That is all there is to it. It has no other meaning whatsoever. President Trump has been demonstrating this for quite some months now. He has already withdrawn from UNESCO, and he has also withdrawn from the World Trade Organization. You know, he's trying to deliver a practical sermon, you know, about the end of multilateralism, attempting to strengthen unilateralism. And I truly believe that multilateralism will ultimately prevail, because everyone here understands that together we will be much stronger, much more capable, and we'll have a much easier time resolving the world's problems.
Let's go to the next question. Murilo Salviano from TV Globo, please.
Hello, Mr. President. Good afternoon. COP30 has just concluded in Brazil. We all know how difficult it is to approve a text with over 190 countries at the table. The so-called roadmap to phase out fossil fuels didn't make it into the final document. It was a point where you invested significant political energy. So, who do you hold responsible for this outcome? You said you feel satisfied. Are you truly satisfied with what was established there in the final document of COP30? And since you mentioned Germany's 7-1, at the COP we had another 7-1, which was the German Prime Minister's discourtesy. You had a bilateral with him, had the opportunity to speak there without the press present.
Did you scold him, and what did you say about Belém?
I just shared a story with the German Prime Minister. I told him that our minds think where our feet are firmly planted. Since he probably hasn't gone out at night, hasn't tasted manisoba, hasn't eaten a filhot.
And he never even danced carimbo. He came all the way to Brazil, but his mind remained back in Berlin.
So he couldn't get to know Belém. I told him that, and I told him that when I go to Berlin, although I really like Brazil, when I arrive in Germany, I eat sauerkraut, I eat pork knuckle, I buy sausages from the carts, hot dogs, and I eat them because I'm not going to travel to another country to keep wanting to eat feijoada. I'm not going to travel to another country just to eat. So I think it's a problem of political experience. I think that next time he comes to Brazil, I think he'll learn to like Brazil. We've scheduled a bilateral meeting. I'll be in Hanover at the world's largest industrial trade fair. I'll be in Hanover to demonstrate that our fuel, our diesel oil, our gasoline emits significantly less CO2 than their fuel. I'll conduct a test there. I have already challenged, he challenges Mercedes-Benz, that we are going to prove that the fuel from Brazil emits less CO2 than the fuel from other countries. Well, what actually and legally happens? Look, when we introduced the discussion about the roadmap, we knew that it was a controversial topic. After all, Brazil is an oil producer. We are extracting 5 million barrels per day. That is not a small amount. But what we want, and the roadmap, is not an imposition of a deadline. It's a discussion in which you must involve experts. You must involve the petroleum companies so that you can begin to envision, the step that you have to take until you manage to completely eliminate, the use of fossil fuels. Also because oil is not only for gasoline and for diesel, it can be used for the petrochemical sector. It will continue to maintain its importance. I knew it was going to be difficult. I never ever imagined that Saudi Arabia would actually agree to something like this, And even here in Brazil, if we were to have a debate here in Brazil, many people would be opposed to it. What we wanted and what we accomplished was to initiate a debate about something that everyone knows will certainly have to happen. Look, if it is indeed true that fossil fuels are responsible for more than 80% of all greenhouse gas emissions, then it is also true that we absolutely need to provide a solution for this. In Brazil's case, we're doing better than any other country by introducing 15% biodiesel into diesel and by introducing 30% ethanol into gasoline. So Brazil is already proving that it's possible to cut down on fossil fuel use, Brazil isn't inventing. It's showing what's possible. Other countries can do this. For example, the African continent, which truly needs to develop and also needs to create jobs, could become a major producer of this raw material to then export it to those nations that simply don't have the land or space to cultivate like the whole of the European Union. So what we are proposing here is this. It is absolutely possible. I don't know if you've noticed, but every single year, Europe always comes up with a new technological mix for its trucks. So it was Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, Euro 7. Every time it goes up by a euro, which is a tech mix to reduce emissions, the truck's price in Brazil increases by 15%. I told them Brazil didn't need to use their mix because our fuel is different from theirs. That's why I said that day when Mercedes-Benz visited the presidential palace that I want to take the fuel there and test it.
I do not want to do the test here in Brazil. I want to conduct a test there to prove that we have better conditions to emit less CO2 than they do. So I believe that the discussion was quite extraordinary. It was a very great beginning. You had the COP more or less divided. You had 80-something countries against and 80-odd countries in favor.
It was very difficult to change the decision. It was very difficult, and we changed the decision because we were the host country. We wanted to create a unique document. Then we talked at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We spoke with Ursula von der Leyen here. We spoke with Antonio Costa. We spoke with Macron. We called Andre many times, Marina many times. We called Petro. We called Petro's minister. In other words, I know it worked out. A single unified document has been approved, and multilateralism emerged triumphant at COP30, and Belém became wonderfully beautiful for the people of Pará. That's it.
Let's move to the next question. Mr. Pedro Alonso from EFA Agency, please.
Mr. President, I would like to inquire if the military deployment by the United States in the Caribbean has been discussed at the G20 Summit, and also if you are concerned about a potential military conflict with Venezuela. Thank you.
Got it.
Mr. President, I would like to inquire whether the full military deployment in the Caribbean situated opposite Venezuela was indeed discussed at the G20. As I am aware, it is a significant concern for you.
Are you still asking part of your question?
He's worried about a potential conflict.
So are you worried then about this, that there would be a potential conflict?
You see, I am quite concerned because South America is considered a zone of peace. We are a continent that doesn't have, nuclear weapons, no atomic bombs. We have nothing. Our business there is to work, to develop, and to grow. I'm very concerned about the military apparatus that the United States deployed in the Caribbean Sea. I am very much concerned, and I plan to have a conversation with President Trump about this because it is truly worrying me. Brazil holds a great responsibility in South America. Brazil shares a border with Venezuela, and that is no small matter, and I believe there is absolutely no sense in having a war right now. So, let's not repeat the mistake that happened in the Russia-Ukraine war, because to start, all it takes is one shot. To end it, no one knows how. So it's important that we find a solution before we start. So I want to say I am very worried, and I hope no military action happens in South America.
Let's take the next question. André Fontinellis from Folha de São Paulo.
President, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Exactly 6 years ago, Jair Bolsonaro was the president, and you, sir, were in prison.
Sound problem?
Back, Jair Bolsonaro's arrest has now been ordered. What are your thoughts on this news and the specific details, like the attempt to disable his electronic ankle monitor? And do you think this could set back the recently improved relationship with President Trump?
Well, the very first thing I want to emphasize is that I do not offer any commentary on a Supreme Court ruling. The justice system has already made its decision. He was tried. He had every right to the presumption of innocence. It was practically 2.5 years of investigation, of testimony, of trial. So justice decided, it's decided, he will serve the sentence that justice determined, and everyone knows what he did. So I have no further comments that I need to make.
And President Trump, would he have said, what a shame?
I think it has nothing to do with it. I think Trump needs to know that we are a sovereign country, that our justice decides, and what is decided here, is decided.
Let's now move on to the next question. Patricia Pinheiro from Rede TV, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Mercosur, yesterday you met with Ursula, with Macron. Do you think that definitively now we can have a guarantee that this agreement will be signed and will be signed still in your mandate as President of the Mercosur group of this year's administration? Do you think President Macron will open his heart as you asked him to when you met him in France?
I'll just say one thing. I'm not making a deal with France. I'm making a deal with the European Union, which has both the Commission's President and Secretary Ursula von der Leyen and the negotiators. They represent the entire European Union. It is with them that I am making this agreement. I can guarantee you that on the 20th of December, I will be signing the European Union Mercosur agreement, and you will be invited to provide a live coverage, you know, because it is a very, very special moment for Mercosur and a special moment for the European Union.
It's an agreement that practically involves, you know, you have from 122 million people and 22 trillion in GDP.
It's an extremely important thing. Possibly it's the biggest trade agreement, you know, in the world. And then after we sign the deal, there'll still be a lot of work for us to start enjoying, you know, its benefits, but it will be signed.
Since you invited me, I must buy the ticket. Brasilia or Foz do Iguaçu?
I'm going to do it in Brasilia. I'm going to do it in Brasilia because it's possible we have a problem with Paraguay who cannot participate on the 20th. It's possible we schedule the Mercosur meeting for the beginning of January and we finalize on December 20th.
All right, then, just a moment, everyone. We'll address any questions later, if necessary. And now, let's move to the final question. Nellie Payton from Reuters.
Mr. President, Nellie Payton from Reuters. You said that it doesn't matter that Trump wasn't here or that the US didn't send someone, but surely it does matter because they didn't want South Africa to put through a declaration without them. Do you think South Africa did the right thing to push through a leader's declaration? And do you think that the US is weakening its influence on a global stage by not attending this meeting? Thanks.
Mr. President, you said, gee, you didn't care much about President Trump's absence, that it wouldn't affect anything. But don't you think that President Trump's absence and under the leadership of the South African presidency and the fact that a final declaration was reached without the presence of the United States, regardless of the United States not wanting this to happen, do you think that this is a demonstration that American influence in the world is diminishing?
Look, you can't really make a judgment, you know, on the importance or lack thereof of a country's involvement just because it missed a meeting. Every single president has, at some point, been absent from a meeting, and the meeting will still proceed, even if there is no president present. Obviously, because the United States was not present, it did not participate in the drafting of the document, nor in its voting. But the 19 countries that were there voted unanimously for the document's approval. That's it. In other words, the United States doesn't lose its significance just because it didn't come. The United States continues to be the world's largest economy, the most important country. But it's just important to know that we exist even when it doesn't participate in a meeting. That's all I wanted to say. I truly hope they can have a very beautiful meeting in Miami.
Okay, everyone, I'd like to thank you all for participating. See you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.